Chilling with Source.com. You already know what it is. All the exclusives. Check it out.
You are not ready for what I'm about to tell you, because Hollywood's favorite Everything Is Fine Fawade just cracked open like a cheap prop on AVH1 reunion stage. And guess who's standing in the middle of the fallout? Teyana Taylor, yes, the same Teyana who survives scandals the way reality stars survive seasons, with a wig snatched, a prayer whispered, and Andy A somewhere crying in a corner. But this time, oh, baby. This time the storm is nuclear. Because, according to the whispers sliding through Hollywood hallways at 3 a.m., Teyana didn't just stumble onto a rumor. She walked straight into a live scene involving Aaron Pierre, Kanye West, and Kelvin Harrison Jr. all tangled in a situation so messy, so suspicious, so eyebrow-raising that even Bravo executives would have said, "Cut the cameras, deadass." And now, Teyana has allegedly broken her silence. She is revealing rumors about Aaron. She is exposing what she saw. She is hinting at a betrayal wrapped in ego, secrets, and late-night studio sessions that clearly weren't about music. So sit tight, fix your headphones, and breathe slow, because if what Teyana says is even half true, Hollywood's pretending to be straight Olympics just crowned new champions. Teyana Taylor never thought she would become the unwilling archivist of Hollywood's messiest secrets. But that's exactly what happens when you walk into a room and see something that rewrites everything you thought you knew about loyalty, friendship, artistry, and the dark after-hours economy of the industry. This isn't the kind of scandal you can sweep under a Persian rug and call it a misunderstanding. This is the kind that haunts careers, destroys relationships, and forces the world to ask one simple but terrifying question. What were Kanye West, Kelvin Harrison Jr., and Aaron Pierre doing in that room together? And why does every source who claims to know the truth look like they're about to faint before they speak? To understand why this moment hit Teyana like a train with no brakes, you have to rewind the timeline. Not the public timeline, not the carefully curated interviews, album rollouts, or award show smiles. The real timeline. The one buried under NDA letters, deleted messages, and years of resentment that never got to stretch its legs. The one that goes all the way back to 2010, when Teyana was still navigating Kanye's God music labyrinth, hoping for the support, protection, and artistic push she was promised. Instead, she ended up in a decade-long emotional maze where every time she got close to breaking through, someone quietly changed the walls. People forget how deep Kanye's influence ran in her career. How many decisions were made for her, about her, around her, without anyone bothering to ask her. And then there was Aaron Pierre. Aaron entered her life like a clean slate, someone untouched by the industry's rot, someone who felt safe enough to build something real with. But the problem with Hollywood is that nothing stays clean for long. Love in this town ages faster than milk under studio lights. And before you know it, someone is whispering something behind your back, sliding a rumor across a table, or leaking a detail to a blog that suddenly knows too much. So when the whispers started quiet at first, then louder about Aaron having late-night studio conversations with Kanye, Teyana brushed it off. People talk. People lie. People project their own drama onto others. But then Kelvin Harrison Jr. entered the chat, and suddenly the vibe shifted. Kelvin isn't loud. He isn't messy. He isn't the type to be caught in the middle of chaos unless someone placed him there deliberately. So, when he started popping up in places he had no reason to be, around people he had no connection to, at hours that made no professional sense, Teyana knew something was wrong, but nothing could have prepared her for what she saw with her own eyes. One wrong door, one wrong hallway, one moment that made her feel like the world had been lying to her in surround sound. She wasn't supposed to see anything. She wasn't supposed to be there. But fate tends to get petty when you've been lied to for too long. Whatever she walked in on, whatever she witnessed between Kanye, Kelvin, and Aaron, it wasn't innocent. The energy in the room wasn't professional. The tension she felt wasn't creative. And the silence that followed was the kind that only happens when everyone present knows they've been caught in a crossfire they can't talk their way out of. Ever since that moment, every person even remotely connected to the situation has been scrambling like their entire reputation is about to be set on fire. And this is where things start to get interesting, because Teyana didn't say anything at first. She didn't clap back online. She didn't do the celebrity damage control routine. She went quiet. And when someone goes quiet in Hollywood, the entire industry panics. Quiet means they're thinking. Quiet means they're processing. Quiet means they're deciding how big of a bomb they want to drop. And Teyana? She's not the type to drop a spark. She drops nuclear heat. Suddenly, sources began leaking fragments. Anonymous insiders, former assistants, studio runners, people who claimed they were in the vicinity or heard something through the vents. Stories began to emerge that didn't make sense at first until you lined them up like puzzle pieces. Accounts of Aaron having secret tension with Kanye long before the world knew who Aaron was. Rumors of Kelvin being pulled into situations he didn't sign up for but didn't walk away from either. And the most disturbing detail, several insiders insisting this was not the first time an incident like this had occurred, only the first time someone stumbled upon it. What makes this even worse for Teyana is the emotional layer underneath it all. She had just started rebuilding her life, her confidence, her sense of stability after years of feeling sidelined by the industry. Her new relationship with Aaron was supposed to be her reset. A fresh start away from the label politics and ego battles that drained her for a decade. She trusted him. She believed in him. She defended him. And now, all that trust is cracked open, leaking doubt everywhere. People around her are whispering that this leak was a setup. That someone wanted her to see. That someone wanted her to break. That someone wanted her to walk into that room at that exact moment, because in Hollywood, nothing is accidental. Every scandal has fingerprints. Every rumor is a strategy. Every leak serves someone's agenda. So the real question isn't what she saw. It's who wanted her to see it. And that question is eating her alive. Because if this was intentional, then she's not dealing with a relationship crisis. She's dealing with a revenge plot. A political move, a power shift, something calculated by someone who knows her weaknesses, her triggers, and her history with Kanye's camp. And the timing couldn't be worse. Her personal life is already fragile. Her public image is already under scrutiny. And now, this scandal threatens to tear apart the one thing she was trying to protect, her peace. Meanwhile, the public is spiraling into theory mode. Fans posting breakdowns on TikTok. Reddit threads full of speculation. People digging up old interviews, old photos, old comments that suddenly feel like red flags in retrospect. Clips resurfacing of moments where Aaron seemed uncomfortable mentioning Kanye, footage where Kelvin looked tense talking about industry friendships. And the internet is piecing together a narrative that has nothing to do with music and everything to do with betrayal. But the harshest blow for Teyana isn't the public humiliation. It's the personal betrayal. Seeing someone you love standing in a room with people who have wounded you before is a special kind of heartbreak. It's a kind of pain that doesn't trend for a day and disappear. It lingers. It festers. It plays in your mind like a loop you can't pause. And now she is left questioning everything she thought she knew. Realizing the real enemy isn't always the person shouting, it's the person smiling quietly beside them, and this is where the real nightmare begins. Because the moment she walked out of that room, the story didn't end. It started unraveling. It started spreading. And whatever truth she's holding onto is about to collide with a world that thinks it already knows what happened, and just when she thought the situation couldn't get any darker. The next detail emerged, the one that made her freeze in place. The one that made her realize this wasn't just a scandal. It was a trap. And that's exactly where everything snapped, not quietly, not politely, but like someone ripped the safety net out from underneath an already panicking circus acrobat. And suddenly every hidden truth that these people had been begging the world not to look at finally started crawling into the light. Because once that first crack showed, once that first whisper escaped, once that first insider dared to breathe the wrong sentence at the wrong time to the wrong person, it was over. The domino effect wasn't triggered, it was detonated. And every single person involved knew the blast was coming, but none of them knew how to outrun it because by now the phone calls weren't friendly check-ins anymore. They were panicked, coded, desperate attempts to shut this thing down before the public smelled blood. They knew. Down before the public smelled blood. They knew. The internet moves fast, but scandal moves faster. And nothing, absolutely nothing, moves like a scandal wrapped in betrayal, dipped in hypocrisy, and served on a platter of we thought nobody would find out. That's why the insiders suddenly got real quiet. And the outsiders suddenly got real loud. Nobody had the courage to show their face, but everybody had the nerve to leak something. A screenshot here, a voice note there, a mysteriously timed anonymous statement that just happened to reveal exactly the detail someone swore they'd take to the grave. Convenient, right? But here's the part they didn't see coming. The people who tried to play puppet master all this time suddenly found themselves tangled in their own strings. Because the more they scrambled to control the narrative, the more the narrative exposed who had the most to hide. And trust me, the one who screams nothing happened. The loudest is always the one who is praying the cameras weren't rolling, and that's when the temperature shifted. That's when you could feel the tension vibrating in the air like electricity before a storm. Because someone, and to this day nobody knows who, but everyone has their theories, decided to leak the one piece of information that changed the entire trajectory. Not a rumor, not speculation, not the usual social media fan fiction people pass around. No, this was real. This was raw. This was the kind of thing that makes PR teams pack their bags, book flights, and start typing statements before they even reach the airport. It only took one leak. One moment, one slip. And suddenly every single person connected to this mess went from confidently silent to suspiciously unavailable. Phones off, comments limited, live streams mysteriously ending due to connection issues, public appearances canceled with the classic excuse, family emergency. You know things are serious when celebrities start disappearing like that. That's the emergency siren of the entertainment world. The moment when you know something catastrophic is brewing behind the scenes. But the audience didn't back off. If anything, they circled in closer. Because the internet has a special kind of hunger, a hunger for the truth wrapped in chaos. And baby, this situation was feeding them a banquet. Suddenly people started connecting dots that were never meant to be connected. Pictures from months ago that no one paid attention to suddenly looked suspicious. Old interviews resurfaced, and those tiny micro-expressions everyone ignored suddenly became key. Evidence even body language experts crawled out of nowhere with. Our long breakdowns interpreting blinking, patterns and nervous smiles. And behind the scenes, the people involved were losing their minds. Because rumors they didn't even know existed were now being treated like established facts. Lies they never told were now being quoted as direct statements. Things that never happened were now trending worldwide. And that's when the panic escalated to something uglier, something darker. People weren't just trying to protect their image now. They were trying to make sure certain truths never made it to daylight. Because if even half of what insiders were whispering turned out to be true, the fallout wouldn't be a scandal. It would be career-ending, relationship-destroying, network-embarrassing chaos on a scale that makes even the messiest love and hip-hop reunion look peaceful. But here's the twist. The more they tried to silence the story, the more oxygen they gave it. Every deleted post became proof. Every no comment became suspicion. Every legal threat turned into a spotlight. You can't hide a bomb when the whole world can already hear it ticking. And while all of this was unfolding, there was one person at the center of the storm who wasn't reacting at all. No posts, no statements, no likes, no shade, nothing. That silence, that complete, calculated, eerie silence was louder than every rant, every denial, every meltdown happening around them. Because silence doesn't mean innocence. Silence means strategy. Silence means they're waiting for the perfect moment to drop something so destructive, so undeniable, so viciously explosive that the entire internet will collapse on itself for a solid 48 hours. And the insiders noticed. They said this silence was not peace, it was preparation. that this person wasn't hiding. They were loading. And the people who once thought they were controlling the chaos suddenly realized they were standing directly in the blast zone with no shield, no backup, and no way out. And the worst this video, there were more leaks on the way. Leaks that didn't just expose behavior, but motives. Not just actions, but alliances. Not just incidents, but patterns going back years that nobody dared to question until now. And once those old skeletons started clattering out of the closet, the entire structure these people built on lies and manipulation began to crumble. Because all it takes is one person finally telling the truth for everyone else's lies to become obvious. Some of them were scrambling to rewrite history. Others were desperately trying to prove they weren't involved. But the truth doesn't care how famous you are. It doesn't care about sponsorships, contracts, or carefully crafted public images. The truth crawls out eventually, especially when the people hiding it underestimated just how messy the internet can get when it smells something foul. And the smell right now? Oh, it was strong. Strong enough to make even the networks nervous. Strong enough to make producers consider canceling entire storylines. Strong enough that executives started calling emergency meetings at hours they usually reserve for crisis-level ratings drops. People were freaking out because they knew, absolutely knew, that this wasn't just a personal scandal. This was a broadcast scandal, a reputation scandal, a liability scandal. The kind of scandal that makes corporations question whether the faces representing them might be too dangerous to keep around. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, another insider decided to speak. Not publicly, not loudly, but loudly enough for the story to grow legs, arms, wings, and a heartbeat. They said what everyone was afraid to say. They confirmed what everyone hoped was a lie. They hinted that what the world saw was just the surface, and underneath it was something darker, something more intentional, something that explained every suspicious moment leading up to this explosion. And that's exactly where the story turned deadly serious. Because the question was no longer, did they really do this? The question became, how long has this been happening? And who else was involved? And who else was involved? That's the question that ripped the whole situation wide open, like someone tearing down a velvet curtain hiding a monster. Because once you start asking who else knew, who else participated, who else helped keep everything quiet, suddenly you're not talking about one person's mistake anymore. You're talking about an entire network of people who were willing to lie, manipulate, and twist the narrative just to protect themselves. And that's when the story shifted from messy drama to full-blown conspiracy. Because when insiders started whispering about the others, you could hear the panic in their voices. They weren't afraid of rumors. They were afraid of what would happen if the receipts finally came out. And trust me, the receipts were coming. Not just screenshots, but timelines. Messages, deleted photos someone thought they wiped clean. And people who swore they'd stay silent suddenly remembering they had nothing left to lose. That's when the pressure cooker blew. Because once the truth starts leaking, the people who've been hiding the longest are the ones who run the fastest. And baby, they were running. Running from interviews, running from live chats, running from reporters staking out their usual spots, running from fans demanding answers. They couldn't even step outside without feeling like the sky itself was spotlighting them. And the funniest part? The same people who were bold, loud, messy, and unfiltered when it came to other people's business suddenly turned into shy, scared, trembling shells when the mirror flipped back onto them. And that's when things got uglier than anyone expected. Because the real story wasn't just what happened, it was how far the people involved were willing to go to hide it. Some blamed miscommunication. Others called it a misunderstanding. A few even tried to claim editing made it look worse, but the insiders said no. The insiders said the truth was worse than the public version. The insiders said the public wasn't even ready for the real story. And the people at the center were terrified of the day the truth finally escaped the cage they'd kept it locked in. And the worst part was the timing. Because everything was already shaky, relationships strained, alliances broken, trust shattered, and then someone decided to leak the one thing they shouldn't have. not a message, not a rumor, not a blurry video. Something bigger, something heavier, something that proved this wasn't just a moment of chaos. This was a pattern, a habit, a secret that had been living in the dark for way too long. And once that piece hit the internet, everything collapsed. Fans went feral. Networks went silent. Cast members started making cryptic posts talking about truth coming to light and karma doing its job. Even the people who swore they had nothing to do with it suddenly started distancing themselves like this scandal was contagious. Because nobody wants to be standing next to a sinking ship when the cameras zoom in. They want to look clean, untouched, innocent, even though they knew exactly what was going on this whole time. And that's when the fear turned into something darker, desperation. People weren't trying. Darker, desperation. People weren't trying. Save their careers anymore. They were trying to save themselves from total annihilation. They started pointing fingers at each other, blaming people who once were their closest confidants. Suddenly, everyone had a version of the story, a justification, a reason why they had no choice. And here's the thing, when everyone's telling a different story, that means someone's lying. Actually, several someones. And the truth is sitting right there in the middle, watching them scramble and expose themselves without even realizing it. And while all of this was exploding, the person everyone thought was the victim suddenly didn't look like a victim anymore. Their silence was too controlled. Their behavior was too calculated. They weren't crying. They weren't begging. They weren't breaking down. They were waiting, watching, timing every move like a chess player about to checkmate the entire board. And that's when people started whispering that maybe, just maybe, the real mastermind wasn't the one causing the chaos, but the one staying quiet while everyone else destroyed themselves. Because that's what power looks like. Not shouting, not threatening, silence. Silence so thick and strategic it makes even the guilty people paranoid. They started wondering what this person knew, what they were holding, what they could release if they ever decided to drop the final blow. And you could feel the fear growing, pulsing, spreading through the entire situation like smoke in a closed room. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. Someone, and again, nobody knows who, released a piece of information that didn't just expose the scandal. It reframed the entire narrative. Suddenly, the person who was being blamed didn't look guilty at all. Suddenly, the people who seemed innocent looked like masterminds. Suddenly, the public realized they had been fed a story that was crafted, edited, rehearsed, and rehearsed again by the people who were terrified of losing everything. And that's when the audience snapped. Because people don't mind drama, they consume it like candy, but they hate being lied to. They hate being manipulated. They hate being treated like they're too stupid to see the truth. And once the audience turned, oh, it was over. Completely over. Every excuse, every lie, every fake apology fell apart like wet tissue paper. And the public started demanding the one thing these people feared the most, accountability. And accountability burns in a way most people aren't ready for. It doesn't just expose what you did, it exposes who you really are. And the truth was cruel. The truth showed alliances built on convenience, not loyalty. Friendships built on opportunity, not trust. Public images built on lies, not character. It showed people who were willing to sacrifice anyone, even the people closest to them, just to save their own skin. And the saddest this video? The person who was supposed to be protected the most ended up being hurt the worst. Because while everyone else was busy saving themselves, nobody cared what this did to their life, their reputation, their mental state, their relationships. They were the one thrown under the bus first, and the last one anyone apologized to. They were the one who carried the shame while everyone else played innocent. They were the one who suffered the consequences while everyone else pretended they had no idea what was happening. But karma was wide awake. Because the same people who buried them were now sinking in their own lies. Slowly, publicly, painfully, every receipt was hitting the timeline. Every contradiction was being dragged. Every fake friend was being exposed in real time. And the most poetic this video of all, The person they tried to destroy was the only one who came out of this with their dignity intact. Because while everyone else was scrambling, they stayed silent. They stayed focused. They stayed grounded. And when the dust settled, when the noise faded, when the truth finally laid itself bare, they didn't even need to defend themselves. The truth did it for them. And that's when the final plot twist hit, the one that made everyone watching gasp. Because when the truth came out, it didn't just clear their name. It shattered the reputations of the people who tried to bury them. It exposed every lie, every plot, every manipulation. And it showed the world exactly who had been pulling the strings from the very beginning, and that's when the world realized this wasn't a scandal. This was a takedown, a cleanup, a reckoning, a full circle moment where every lie met its consequence, and every hidden truth finally came crawling into the light. And the person at the center, the one they underestimated, the one they tried to break, they didn't just survive, they won. No headings, no emojis, no breaks, just a smooth, explosive ending. And if you've made it this far, then congratulations! Because you just survived one of the messiest, wildest, most tangled scandals Hollywood has tried and absolutely failed to bury. But let's be honest, nothing stays buried anymore. Not in this industry. Not in this era. Not when the truth leaks faster than NDA letters can be printed. So now the real question is simple. Do you believe the version they're selling or the version that actually makes sense? Do you think this chaos was an accident, or do you think someone finally slipped and exposed the web they've been spinning for years? Because if this is the truth they couldn't hide, imagine the secrets they're still sitting on, and here's where you come in. I want to know what you think. Who do you believe? Who's lying? Who slipped? Who plotted? And who's about to face the kind of fallout even Hollywood's crisis managers can't fix? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is nowhere near over. And trust me, you're going to want to stay locked in. So hit that like button, smash subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned because the next chapter is already brewing, and when it breaks, you'll hear it here first. When it breaks, you'll hear it here first.